So, good afternoon once again. Now, this afternoon, we are continuing with our topic nutrition in animals. However, we're going to be focusing on deficiency diseases. Now, in our last class, we were looking at some of the different food nutrients and their functions within our body and how they help our body and so on. So today we are going to learn about what will happen to our body if we're not able to get these different food nutrients. So this afternoon we have two basic objectives that we need to work on. And the first one is at the end of the lesson, I'm expecting all of you to be able to define the term deficiency diseases. You should be able to explain to me what is meant by the term deficiency diseases. And the other objective is to list the major deficiency diseases that occur due to a lack of the essential nutrients. So those are the two main objectives that we're focusing on this afternoon. Now, before we can get into what exactly deficiency diseases are, I just want us to go over some of the basic things that we already know. The first point I have there is the first point I have is that a balanced diet is extremely important for the good health of a person. And that is something that we already know. We also know that any imbalance in the diet can lead to either an excess or an insufficient intake of certain nutrients. Remember, we said that a balanced diet is simply a diet that supplies all of different food nutrients in the correct proportion, right? So if we are to only eat a certain type of food, and we know that we are only going to get a certain nutrients from that type of food, then therefore we are going to be lacking in some other nutrients, right? So again, it is important that we consume the right amount. We don't take too much, neither do we take too little bit. And the last point I have there is that the insufficient intake of any particular nutrient can lead to a deficiency disease. Now, I spoke a little bit about this in our last class, where I was saying that we all know that if we don't have a certain intake of a particular nutrient or certain nutrients, our body will basically show that we're lacking these different nutrients. And the only way that we can determine that is through the signs and the symptoms of a deficiency disease. Now, who can tell me or who can come up with a nice, lovely definition as to what deficiency diseases are? Anybody? Anyone who would like to make a try?
Yes, it deals with some lack of nutrients.
All right, it deals with the lack of nutrients. Okay, that's basically what it is. Yes. Would anybody else like to add anything to that? Anybody else? Anybody would like to add? Anybody would like to take away? Nobody else? All right. Since there's no other person who'd like to add anything to that, I'm going to give you my definition. And my definition says that a deficiency disease is a disease that is caused by the lack of a certain essential nutrient in one's diet over a prolonged period of time. So there you can see it doesn't only have to do with you lacking a certain nutrient. It has to be an essential nutrient, and you have to be lacking this particular nutrient over a long prolonged period of time in order for it to become a disease, right? Now, in some cases, you might find certain persons lacking more than one essential nutrient. For example, you might find somebody lacking protein and vitamins, while in other cases, you might find a person only lacking in vitamin A. So it varies, right? But basically, a deficiency disease is a disease that is caused by the lack of a certain essential nutrient in one's diet over a prolonged period of time. Now, I want us to look at certain deficiency diseases that are associated with certain essential nutrients. Now, there are two major deficiency disease that is caused by a lack of more than one essential nutrient. Now, that first disease that we're going to look at is called marasmus. Now, in this type of deficiency disease, it is a form of severe malnutrition. Now, when we had started looking at food nutrients and balanced diet, we looked at what the term malnutrition is. Who can remember or who can remind us as to what malnutrition is? Anybody? I was saying that when we were looking at balanced diet and when we were looking at food nutrients, we talked a little bit about what malnutrition is. Who can tell
That's
me
when you're eating. That's when you're eating enough.
when you're not eating enough? All right. Is it just not eating enough? Can you be more specific? Can you be a little bit more specific than
But you're not eating enough nutrients.
when you're not eating enough nutrients? All right. Or you can say when you're not consuming enough nutrients. Anybody else would like to add anything? No one else? All right. Now, based on what we had discussed previous, we said that an unbalanced diet eventually will lead to malnutrition. Now, malnutrition is basically considered as bad nutrition because it's actually a situation where a person is consuming inadequate amount of the correct food. Now, when I say the person is consuming inadequate amount of the correct food, for example, let's say I have a balanced diet that is consisted of protein, carbohydrates, minerals, and vitamins. Now, every day I'm eating that particular balanced diet, right? Every day I'm consuming it. Now, let's say on a daily basis now, every single day when it's time for me to eat, I only eat a little bit. I only pick a little bit of the vegetables. I only pick a little bit of the rice, and that is it, right? Now, if I continue like that every single day, it will lead to me having a bad nutrition. Is everybody following?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Now, likewise, let's say I am eating a balanced diet. Same thing again. I have protein, I have carbohydrates, I have minerals, I have vitamins. Now, let's say I'm eating that balanced diet. I eat like 4 times per day. 4 times per day, and you multiply that by 7 days in the week. What do you think is going to happen to me? What do you think is going to happen to me if I am eating 4 times a day and it is a balanced diet and there's 7 days in the week? What do you think is going to happen to me? Hello? Somebody have their mic on. I don't know if you're trying to speak or your mic is on by mistake. Yes, as I was saying, what is going to happen to me if I eat 4 times a day, every day in the week, and the meal that I'm having is a balanced diet? What is going to happen to me?
You're not gonna get fat.
I'm going to get fat, right? Now, does anybody know the name of that condition whereby a person is very, very fat?
Miss Obese.
Obesity?
Very good. Obesity, right?
Obesity. Yes. Kev.
Obesity.
Yeah.
Obesity is the name of the condition, right? Now, if you are to describe to somebody about that person, you're gonna say, oh, that person is obese, right? But in terms of the condition it's called obesity, right? So here again we see that all of that is simply what malnutrition is, right? So everybody understands what malnutrition is.
Yeah, miss.
All right, so
Yes, miss.
let's go back to marasmus. Now, like I said, it is a form of severe malnutrition and it occurs in anybody who is severely malnourished. But in most cases, this type of disease occur in children who are malnourished, right? Now, this deficiency disease is caused by a lack of essential nutrients. So, in this case, it's not just one particular nutrient. In this case, the person who's suffering from this type of disease is lacking more than one essential nutrient. Now, some of these nutrients would include proteins, carbohydrates, and other nutrients, could be vitamins and minerals and so on. Now, some of the symptoms of this disease would include chronic diarrhea, respiratory infections. The individual might be suffering from a disability in terms of intellectual disability, and the person may experience stunted growth, meaning you could notice that the person is not developing as they are supposed to. All right, so this first deficiency disease is one of the most common deficiency disease that you might find, let's say, in a lot of underdeveloped country and even developing countries. Mostly, you can find it mostly with children in certain parts of India and certain parts of Africa, right? Any question on this so far before I move on to the next one?
No, miss.
All right. So the next deficiency disease that I want us to look at is one called kwashiorkor. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard this word before, have seen it before, but kwashiorkor is another very common deficiency disease. And again, this type of disease is caused due to malnutrition, and persons who suffer from this particular disease tend to lack protein and a lot of vitamins. Now, some of the signs that you might find would include retarded growth or stunted growth, changes in pigmentation. When I say changes in pigmentation, I'm speaking about like color of the skin, color of the hair, and all of those things. Another way in which you can tell if a person is suffering from squashioker is the person you might notice having a pot belly. Now, when I say a pot belly, I'm speaking about the person having a big stomach, right? It's like their belly, it is swollen. I'm sure some of you would have seen that in some cases. And also the person would suffer from anemia. Now, I have a picture here that is comparing what a person may look like if they're suffering from squashioker compared to marasmus. Can everybody see the picture clearly?
Yes, you're breaking up.
I was saying that I have a picture that is showing you what a person is going to look like if they're suffering from squashioker
Yes, miss.
compared to if they're suffering from marasmus. Now, in the person who's suffering from squashioker, all right, so I was talking about the first two deficiency disease that we looked at, which are squashioker and marasmus. Now, I was saying that on the screen, you are supposed to be seeing a picture that is comparing two children who are suffering from these diseases. Now, if you look at the first child who's suffering from squashioker, you would notice that one of the very first noticeable sign that you can see there is that the child has a very big swollen belly, right? You can also see that their arms are very fine, their face it's swollen, and their eyes are somewhat bulging, right? It's like if their eyes are popping out of their eye socket as compared to a person who's suffering from.
Miss, that is not.
Pardon? Somebody said something.
Miss, what you said?
I didn't hear you, Kevin.
Miss, what? Miss, somebody eyes again?
It is bulging, meaning is like it look as if it's coming out of the eye socket. You know what's the eye socket? Your eye socket
Yes,
is
Miss.
okay. Well, your eye socket, which is like a part of your skull, a person who's suffering from squashioker is like eyes are very, very big. That is like it's coming out like, right? Now, as compared to marasmus, a person who's suffering from that, you're gonna see that the ribs are very noticeable, meaning you can see the bones. Their skin is very wrinkled. Um, they have very fine arms in terms of their legs. It is very fine and it is well, depending on the person, if it's a short person or a tall person, it's gonna vary. So I won't say that it is long as what the picture is showing here, but this is what this is supposed to give you an idea as to how persons or how children may look in the case of if they're suffering from these two types of deficiency disease. Clear so far?
Miss, which one more worse? All two?
I would say both because all two of them can actually kill you. So I won't say one is more bad than the other. However, they can be prevented or they can be controlled. And for example, squashioker, uh, one of the easiest way in controlling that is that you can ensure that the person who is suffering from that disease, that the person is provided with a diet that is very rich in protein. Similar again to this other disease, marasmus. Both of them, you can ensure that the person is given sufficient nutrients. They're given a balanced diet. The diet is rich in protein. So, all right, is there any question on squashioker and marasmus?
Miss, the boy with the marasmus, miss. Missy, if you get enough nutrients, miss, can he be cured?
Yes, I was saying that both of these diseases they can be corrected once the persons are provided with a balanced diet, especially a diet that is rich in protein. So yes, but if the persons are left just like that and they don't have access to a balanced diet, eventually they will die, right? But once they are provided with a balanced diet, one that is rich in protein as well, they can be they can survive and they can grow past these different diseases.